Welcome to What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett. This is the channel that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful if you live consciously. Welcome to this week's edition of What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? We all know to live our best and most beautiful life, we want to feel our best. We want to know that we can get support at times when we might need it. And one thing that can really help with that is spiritual healing. Far from the madding crowd and nestled in the Surrey Hills in the historic village of Shere, which is one of the most picturesque villages in Surrey and has been used in countless films, like Bridget Jones's Diary, to name just one, and the Christmas one that's on every year, The Holiday. It's been used in so many film locations. Situated just outside the village in the nearby country lane, you can discover Burrows Lea Country House. It's overlooking stunning fields as far as the eye can see, and this is the Harry Edwards Healing Centre. If you've never been there, I highly recommend you go. I've been a few times, and it is the most peaceful and beautiful place. Today, I'm delighted to have with me Alison McWhinnie. Alison is the Director of Development, and she's here to tell us more about the centre. Hi, Alison.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. It's such an important topic. But to start with, Alison, tell us, how did you get involved with healing and the Harry Edwards Centre?
Well, if you'd asked me, if you'd said to me in my 20s, you will become a healer yourself and you will be involved in healing, I would have looked at you with a very skeptical look on my face, because healing was not on my agenda at all. I first came across healing in the early 90s when I moved into a new flat, and two of my neighbours, a husband and wife team, were spiritual healers, and they'd actually trained at the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. And I didn't really know anything about healing, and I thought live and let live, didn't have any positive or negative views about it at all. And then in 2005, my mum was rushed into hospital very unexpectedly. A routine blood test had picked up a very high potassium level, which affects your heart rate. And by the time I got to the hospital, she was in resus, and the medical team were battling to get a steady heartbeat. Her heartbeat was all over the place. And what had happened was she had suffered acute renal failure. And we were 6-7 hours in resus before she was stabilised, and she was then moved to a high dependency unit. And I was told by the consultant that she would need dialysis at some point going forward. I happened to bump into my neighbours, my healer neighbours, the next morning and told them what had happened. And they said, we can start distant healing straight away. Would you like that? And I said, I will accept everything going. Yes, please start. So I was going into the hospital every day, and Mum's condition started to improve in a way the consultants were not expecting. And they never had to go down the route of dialysis at all, because her kidneys suddenly started working. Now, they were compromised because they had stopped completely, so there was scarring on her kidneys, and she was not at 100% kidney function, but she was at a level that she didn't need dialysis, and she was on the high dependency ward for a week, then moved to a heart ward, and then discharged. And she didn't actually pass until 2018, so quite some considerable time elapsed before she did pass. So that was quite a journey. And I suddenly thought, right, spiritual healing, you've now got my attention. I stopped full-time work in 2014 to look after my mum. By this time, she was quite elderly, and as with old age, quite often a number of medical conditions come along with that. And I was her full-time carer until she passed in 2018. During that time, we went to numerous hospital appointments with a variety of consultants, lots of tests. And invariably, the consultant would say, what are you doing? because the results that we're getting from these tests are not what I would expect. She's achieved a level of stability that I would not expect with just what we're doing. Something else is happening here. So I took a deep breath, expecting to be laughed out of court, and told them what was happening, because I was asking for healing support all through this journey. And their reply invariably was just, well, you keep doing what you're doing. We don't understand it, but these test results don't lie. And it's having a very positive impact. So that really sort of got me on the sort of healing wavelength. While I was my mum's carer, I took on a number of board positions as a trustee and non-executive director. And one of them was for the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. I became a trustee. And my thinking there was, when you're looking after somebody seriously ill, that takes up a lot of your time, and balancing full-time work with a caring role can be quite difficult. Whereas with a trustee role, I could balance that with all the hospital appointments, and I could do work at home and therefore keep one eye on mum. And so I was a trustee and then a non-executive director of a subsidiary company of the sanctuary as well, up until mum's death. And then after she had passed, a job came up at the sanctuary, and I applied and became the operations director at that point. Also at that point, I started my own training to become a healer through the Sanctuaries College, because we have a college where we train people to become healers, and that's a 2-year course. And I passed my panel about 18 months ago, so I'm a healer as well. And now I'm the director of development at the sanctuary.
That's such a fascinating story. I think the National Health Service, you know, we can't do without them, but I think they are becoming more and more aware of alternative therapies and practices, because results, as you say, don't lie. And there's so many instances where the results are there to show that healing and changing your diet and changing your lifestyle can make so much difference to what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I would say that the healing that we offer is part of the package. So we're complementary to whatever your doctor or consultant is doing. Yeah. We always say to people, are you seeing your doctor? Are you seeing a consultant? Still keep seeing them. We are not a replacement for that whatsoever. And also, when the test results come in and show the improvements, that's lovely for us as well, because it's not just our imagination that someone's looking a bit better, you know, that the test results are there. But I would say it's part of the package, along with seeing your doctor and your consultant, also a good diet and exercise as well. It's all part of the package.
It's all part of the package, and we would never say to anyone, I mean, I have known people refuse medical intervention and still get amazing dramatic results, but we would never say to anyone that that would be our advice. They would always need to continue with the medical as well. I think another huge thing is mindset, and sometimes getting your family on board to not talk about your illness all the time. One of the things in this podcast I was listening to earlier today about aging, and it was saying a lot has to do with how you feel. So if you constantly say to yourself, oh, I'm getting old, I can't do this, I can't do that, you won't be able to. And I've got a lovely story. Yeah, it's so true. Just think positive thoughts and you know, be positive and embrace the aging process, and realize you can still do so many things. And there is evidence now, scientific evidence from long research studies that have been done in Ireland with Trinity College in Ireland, which prove that those people who don't consider themselves old, who keep a busy schedule, who have a good social life, they're the ones that don't age as fast and don't go into that big decline. But yeah, I always remember a friend of mine who was a naturopath, and she had this woman who used to go in regularly, and she was all bent up double with arthritis, in a lot of pain. And she said, oh, it's such a shame, I can't do my gardening anymore because I'm in so much pain. And this lady did a lot of tests on her, the way that naturopaths do, and then made up a tincture for her to have in water. And also said to her, think about what you're saying to yourself. Tell your family not to ring up every day saying, well, how's the arthritis? To ring up and have a chat. It's lovely to be able to chat to them and express, you know, how much you love your children, your grown-up children and grandchildren and the rest of it. But don't just focus on your illness. And so she did that. A month later, she walked in for her appointment. She was standing up straight. She said she'd been gardening. And it was quite incredible that, you know, just being more positive and not letting other people bring her down by just focusing on the illness really, really worked.
Absolutely.
Let's explain to people, Alison, exactly what spiritual healing is, because there might be people listening who don't actually understand what it is.
Yes, of course. So it's actually one of the oldest and most natural forms of non-invasive support for the wellness of the body. And many people who've received healing claim it to be a wonderful and life-changing experience. It can be given for all range of conditions, for peace and relaxation, any illness, stress, or injury as a therapy. It's completely natural, has no side effects, and is completely complementary to your medical treatment. And so what essentially happens is that the healer acts as a channel for universal energy or God energy, however you like to describe that, to come through them and to the client. So although we may be described as healers, the healing energy is not from us as healers, it is coming through us. And I like to liken it a bit to radios. So we have radio waves all around us, but without the radio as a machine and switching that on, we can't convert the radio waves into anything that makes any sense to us or works for us in some way. So the healer is a conduit for that energy to go through into the client. And it's a very calming treatment. So being relaxed is extremely good for your health. Being in what we call a parasympathetic state is extremely good, not only for healing energy to get through to you, but also any treatment that you might be receiving from your GP or consultant, because it positions the body to its best place to receive healing and to start trying to heal itself, if that is possible. And it works on all levels. So it's your body, it's physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's well-being, because we know that all those areas play a part. You can't just separate the physical from everything else. And healing will work according to your own individual needs and will support your body's natural ability to heal itself. It's completely non-invasive and it's suitable for all ages. Now, we can't always guarantee that a cure will happen, although sometimes it does happen. Healing can cure all illnesses, but it can't necessarily cure all bodies. So it very much depends on what state the body is in as to whether it can be healed or not completely, as in a cure. However, even if somebody is terminally ill, healing can still be of assistance, because the relaxation it brings can give them a sense of peace at what is a very difficult time for them. And it can also help with the side effects of any drugs they may be taking for their illness. So quite often we find that it helps people to cope with whatever they're having to deal with in life. And it may also improve their quality of life. And if you're a carer, it can be helpful to you with the stress that you will be experiencing looking after somebody who is ill, as well as the person that you're looking after. So to summarize, it can create deep relaxation, which is good for you. It aids the body to release stress and tension. It can aid better sleep, which is always good news. And it can also accelerate the body's self-healing abilities as well.
Fantastic. It's one of those sort of mysteries of the world, I guess, but having that, you're right. I think the analogy with the radio is brilliant, that we don't actually know how that happened. Well, a bit like now with streaming TV, you might be linked up to a dish, but those waves are coming from somewhere into that
Yeah.
dish and down the cable into your TV. So yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, and should help people to realize that anything's possible. You know, we are all just energetic beings, living in the same world, and we are all connected in one way or another. So that's a great way to help people understand. And we've touched that it can help any illness, and it can even relieve the sort of symptoms when you're having awful, you know, maybe chemotherapy or radiation or something.
Yes.
But who can it help, Alison?
So it can help people of all ages, including babies and children. And it can also help animals as well. We do animal healing here too. So you don't have to be of a particular religion to benefit. It's not faith healing, because it doesn't matter how much faith or how little faith you have. The process is that the healer is grounding themselves, attuning, and then channeling the energy through them to you. And if you think, for example, about the animals who come to us for healing, because animals really benefit from healing too, they do not belong to a particular religion. So we welcome people of religion and without religion as well. You don't have to have any particular faith. Everybody is welcome.
Yeah, no, brilliant. You're right. I remember when the first dog I ever had was a puppy, and because he was a rescue, I had Reiki on him, and it was amazing. He's been a very calm dog ever since. I should have had it on my second one, actually. He's still a loving dog, but he's not that calm. Things can excite him, and he'll see certain people and he won't like them just instinctively. So it's quite interesting to see them. I know that you offer a lot of healing at the centre, but during COVID, obviously you couldn't have people in the centre, so distanced healing started. How does that work?
So we do a variety of different kinds of distant healing. People can write or email into the sanctuary to request distant healing for themselves or for somebody else. And you're right, as a result of COVID, we did have to close down several times. And so we started taking events to Zoom. And we actually started giving healing via Zoom, both on a one-to-one basis and also on the first of every month. We hold what we call the healing circle, which is essentially a group healing. And there the healer will still ground themselves and attune and start channeling energy towards the person who has requested the healing. And it does sort of make you think, well, how can this work over Zoom? How does that work exactly? And yet we found it's just as effective. And I had an instance myself where I was assisting one of our other healers to do a group healing. And on that particular morning, one of my hips had been playing up, and I didn't mention it because it wasn't a big deal, but it was just a bit. And at the end of the healing, he said, "Now you notice that I focused on hips quite a bit because I feel there's somebody in this Zoom room who's got a hip problem this morning." And I was like, "How did you know? How did you know?" And yet he just picked it up. And I think that with healers, we become very sensitive to energy.
Yeah.
And we can pick up things very intuitively. And it is all about energy and then sending the positive energy to that person. It's amazing how it does work. We can also offer distant healing by telephone as well, if people prefer that method and are not comfortable with Zoom. But with some people like to see the healer concerned, which of course you can do on Zoom.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice on Zoom, isn't it? And I think if you think of having a spiritual reading, which is another thing I love, and you may get members of spirit that, you know, people have passed that, you know, coming through, and it is amazing the things that they pick up, and it's the same energy, isn't it? It's just people tuning into that energy. I went to a spiritual church once, and I'd love to find one again near me. I went with my cousin who lived in Devon, and it was just incredible to see the messages that came through. It was fascinating. So I do love I had a reading from quite a renowned spiritual reader once, and it was just after my father had suddenly passed away, and he came through and chose his own funeral music, which was quite
Oh, how
incredible.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was wonderful, because she did warn me at the start, it's too soon, he probably won't, he'll be in that transitional stage and he's unlikely to come through. But there were so many things that she said, and there was no doubt it was him, coming through, to because it was the only thing I hadn't done for the funeral, was choose the music.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I should make clear is that within the sanctuary, we wouldn't pass on messages during the healing appointment at all.
No.
The focus is just on the healing. We don't do messages,
Yes.
although that's very important too. But the focus is just on the healing.
Yes, no, I can understand that. That's the whole purpose of the centre, which is great.
And that actually carries on Harry Edwards' own wish. So the sanctuary was set up by a world-renowned healer called Harry Edwards, who passed in December 1976. And his healing ability, his ability to channel healing energy, was very, very strong. And we have pictures in our archives of people who came to the sanctuary with walking sticks and then left throwing their walking sticks aside. Now, Harry Edwards was a medium as well.
Yeah.
But he wanted a clear division between mediumship and healing at the sanctuary, and we've kept that to this day, because he wanted just a very clear focus on the healing.
Yeah.
And our intention to be purely on the healing for maximum effect, really.
Yeah.
So we still follow that practice to this day.
Okay, that's good. And I know there's a book all about Harry Edwards, isn't there?
Yes, we've got several books about some that he's written as well.
Yeah.
And although they're clearly books of a certain time, and several decades ago, his teachings are really quite profound, and he really did know his stuff. And so when I was studying to become a healer, I absolutely loved reading his books, and they were just so informative and full of great guidance, that really transgresses all those decades since they were written.
Yeah, and I think it's important to think that if he was writing this then, when it was, most people would not accept things like that in those days.
No.
I think
No.
the fact that it's so much more common now, I mean, part of that is his legacy, the fact that it is, but to show that the messages he gave then are still so appropriate today, I think that's amazing. Tell us a little bit more about how the centre works, and what support you offer.
So we offer contact healing here. The centre is open 7 days a week, and we have 86 healers on our register, all of whom are volunteers. We are a member of UK Healers, who set the standard for our training and for our performance as healers. So all our healers will follow a code of conduct to make sure that everything is professional. So we have contact healing on site. We also have 6 bedrooms on site, and we run retreats here, 1 day, 4 day, 5 day retreats, which is one of our income streams. And during those retreats, people can receive daily healing appointments. And then we often offer daily meditations and other supportive therapies as well. So sometimes we might have a gong bath, we might have Indian head massage as part of the retreat. People are surrounded, when they come to stay with us, in 30 acres of grounds. And the view behind me is part of our grounds. It's overlooking Cherry Tree Walk, which overlooks the Surrey Hills farmland. So a lot of our guests just like to wander around our grounds and just soak up that countryside. And that in itself can be very restorative. We have people who come here for forest bathing. We have a meditation glade. We have a labyrinth as well. And we have plenty of benches along what we call Cherry Tree Walk, which is right behind me, just so people can just sit and relax and take in the views as well. We also offer Bluebell's cancer support groups for people who are living with cancer, a place for them to come and unburden themselves, cry if they need to, talk about what they're going through. But actually there's a lot of laughter between the people who come as well, and a lot of support. And we have a WhatsApp group that's set up for people who come to us for Bluebell's cancer support, because quite often you find that somebody receiving treatment might not feel well enough to come out on a particular day. So they can still stay in touch with people, even if they're not fit enough to come out. Now, the pandemic obviously caused, unfortunately, a large number of people who made their transition. And bereavement was affected in a way we've never seen it affected before because of the restrictions imposed by COVID. So we felt it important to set up a bereavement support group as well, and that meets once a month. And the lady who leads that is Cruise bereavement trained. And it's again a very supportive place where people can work through their bereavement journey, because we know it's important to process those feelings once you've lost somebody, but it's a very painful process at the same time, and everybody grieves differently as well. And we felt that this was an important service. We also set up a chat time during the pandemic, and this is where people could ring in, make an appointment with one of our healers, and then have a telephone call where they could talk about anything they wanted to. And we felt this was really important because COVID was so isolating. And we felt that particularly for people who were unable to get out of the house, who might be elderly, ill, having somebody, another human being that they could just talk to and just chat to was so important during that time. We also, as well as our own retreats, people can create their own retreat and book our facilities. And so we're particularly conducive to things like yoga and Pilates, or if a firm wanted to have away time from the desk, strategy meetings and some think tank time as well. We quite often get use for that too. We also do quite a number of online events, which came about because of COVID. So we have, every month we have 2 group healing events on the first of the month and the second Sunday of the month. And we also have a number of talks, some of which are fee-paying talks, some are free. I do a series called In Conversations, where I talk with a lot of healers about their journey and their thoughts on healing, and to debunk some of the myths around healing as well. And we've also been doing a lot of work with Healing in America as well, joining up with healers in America and doing joint events with them as well.
Fantastic. Just so that people know, I mean, I've been to a gong bath there, which was, I love gong baths anyway, which was amazing.
Yes, I do as well.
Yeah, I managed to find one here in Mallorca, and I go once a month to one here, which is really lovely. And then I've also been to a couple of talks that have been there. One was on crystals, and one, I think the other one was on meditation, and we did actually do a meditation. So I have been there a few times. Can people come and just walk around the grounds without any sort of...
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Yes, they can. And they can also pop into the house as well if we're open. We close at 4:30 most days, unless we've got something on. But we also have a new café that started just within the last month and is open Thursday to Sunday. So from 9:30 onwards, people can pop in for a cup of tea or coffee, breakfast, a light lunch, and we closed at 4 o'clock. And that includes outside seating as well when the weather is supportive towards outside seating. And we're getting, on nice days, we're getting quite a lot of people just enjoying sitting outside with a cuppa and just taking in the views. Our grounds are open all the time. They're very popular with dog walkers and people who just want to relax And we've got quite a lot of wildlife here as well, so lots of rabbits. And we've also got our own deer roaming around as well, which are absolutely lovely to see, as well as the odd pheasant as well. And we work quite a bit as well with groups who look at mental health, and perhaps have clients who suffer from anxiety and stress. Now they come to us for healing, because obviously healing appointments are very good for them, but quite often we find them wandering around our grounds as well, because I think nature in itself can be very restorative. And I often wonder if we're actually on ley lines here, because we have quite a long drive up to the house that passes 2 paddocks and then a car park. And the minute you turn up off the country road and into our grounds, you just feel this sense of peace. And a lot of people comment on that, and are affected by that sense as well. So that is all good towards your health too.
Yes. I was going to ask about dogs, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I'm in the, if I do usually take my dogs back to the UK for the summer to get out of the heat. And I'm always looking for lovely places to walk them. So that's interesting. And yeah, I agree, there is a complete sense of peace there. So it's wonderful you now have the cafe, because I think a morning dog walk and then a sort of brunchy breakfast sounds wonderful. Let's just touch on briefly, we are running out of time, but tell us a little bit about how the centre is funded.
So we don't charge, we don't have a fixed fee for our healing appointments, and we feel that is very important. Because we feel that people who are seriously ill or are elderly and ill might not have a lot of finances, and we didn't want money to be a block to them receiving healing. So we are funded by donations. Donations are always most welcome. And also we receive income from some of our activities. So that would include the retreats. We also have a shop here as well. The cafe will help contribute to that, and people holding events, hiring our rooms, or if people come along to some of our events, that will help with our income supply as well. Now, obviously, we are a registered charity, and we've obviously been affected by the pandemic like every other organisation. So those donations are very important to us. People can also become friends of the sanctuary. Sanctuary Friends, that's another way that helps us to raise money, where they pay for a subscription. They receive some discounts on some of our activities, but the amount that they give adds to our money pot as well, and is much appreciated.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And then finally, Alison, how can people find out more and contact the centre?
So we have a website. Do visit our website, www.harryedwardshealingsanctuary.org.uk. And our telephone number is 01483 202 054. And we're also on Facebook at Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary as well. Okay.
And any other social media platforms?
That is our main one. We do have a YouTube channel as well, at HE Sanctuary, but Facebook is the main one that we use at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure all of those links are posted up in the show notes so that people
Lovely.
easily click on a link and not have to worry too much about finding it. And Alison, just now to say thank you so much for being with us today. It's so lovely, you know, having been there and having done forest bathing a few times as well. I just think it's more people need to know about it, more people need to be aware of it. And if there's anyone listening and they don't need it personally, but you might be able to make a donation, or if you've got a place to run a marathon or something and you want to make the Harry Edwards Centre your charity of choice for that event, that sportive you're taking part in, then please remember them, because it's such an amazing facility to have. And we need to make sure that it's been funded. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.